Hey guys, this is Ed. Today I'm going to be talking about interviews. So, interviews are the step between applying for a job and then getting a job, right? It's like that middle step that you have to go through in order to get a job. Interviews, more than likely, you have to interview for whatever position you want to do, or if you want to get a job, get a role somewhere, more than likely you have to interview for that role, right? I know personally, I've had to interview for school organizations, clubs, internships, co-ops, jobs, whether that's working at a gas station or that's working at a grocery store or like a retail store or whatever, more than likely you're going to have to interview you, right? They're going to have to interview you. Interviews pretty much help the company decide if you're a good fit for their culture, their values, and it helps you determine if you want to work for that company too, because a lot of people don't get this, but interviews are a two-way street, right? As much as they're interviewing you, you interview them as well. So without further ado, I'm going to start our PowerPoint here. Let me share my screen. And there we go. All right. So interviews, Rudder High School. Then let's click next. All right. So what are interviews and how do you get there? So interviews are one of the many steps of acquiring a job. They're important because it helps a company determine if you would be a good fit for the position and the organization. They're also used so that the hiring manager can get a feel for what you're like, right? So let's say, you apply for a job and they like your resume, right? And they're like, okay, let's bring them in and see what they're like. And so they bring you in and they start asking you questions, they want to get to know you, the real you. So don't try to force anything, just act natural, be yourself. I know a lot of times people get nervous and that's totally okay. But later on in this presentation, I'll talk more about what to do, how to behave in an interview, and what I do whenever I get nervous and how it helps me look more comfortable. So why are they important and why should you care? Honestly, why should you care? So first of all, the importance is because interviews are give you an idea of who you're going to be working for. You also get a feel for what the company culture is, as I said previously. Interviews are typically only given to candidates that a company feels strongly towards. So if you land an interview, that says a lot about you. So feel good about it, self-confidence high. Also, if you have landed an interview, the employer sees a lot of potential in you, right? So they won't bring anyone that they don't think that they're going to fit the culture, and a lot of this are determined by your resume. And I'm going to make a video on what a resume is later on throughout the semester, how to craft a good resume, how to show who you are through your resume, right? But that's for another video. So how do you prepare for a job interview? One of the biggest things you can do to prepare for a job interview is research the company, okay? Research. What are some of their goals? What are their values? What is their history? What is one cool product they have on the market, right? So if you're able to know what their goals are, you can align them to your goals, right? If their goal is to be net zero by 2050, and the environment is something you really care about, right? That might be a company that you might want to work for. Also look at their values. What do their values say about them? Do they align with your values, right? What is their history? I personally find this one very interesting because I love to learn about how companies got to where they are now, right? And what is one cool product that they have on the market? So, companies are companies because they sell a product, whatever that product may be. It may be software, it may be chemicals, it may be a food service, it may be a computer, different hardware, but they always will have a product that they're selling, like the examples I gave you. So always research one of the cool products that they have on the market. Once you research all that, jot them down, like write them down, kind of like memorize them, get to know it. So whenever you get to the interview, the interviewer feels good about you, says like, wow, this guy or girl really did the research, and they may know more than I do about this company, honestly. That's the ultimate goal. Show them that you care about the company. Show them that you're not just applying because it's a job, it's because you're actually interested in what they do, what the organization is about, the brand, you know. So a lot of the answers to these questions can be found on their website. That's the first thing I do. Whenever I applied for a job, I apply for it, look at the website, or more than likely, I'll actually look at the website before I apply to the job. And then I start doing my own research. And once I get an overview and get a feel for it, then I'll apply. And once I've applied and get an interview, that's whenever I do more research and more digging, right? Because if not, like, you'll sit here, apply to 100 jobs, and then you're gonna have to go and research all this. Like, no, just do the research before you apply for a job. You skim through a company's website, and then when you land an interview, that's when you should really dig in. So what do you do when you get an interview? So there are a couple of things, or what do you need when you get into an interview? Okay, sorry. So there's a couple of things that you need whenever you go into an interview, but two that you must take with you, okay? I don't care what you take, bring these with you. You want your resume and a cover letter, all right? So when you get into an interview, make sure that you bring extra copies of your resumes, give one to the employer and one for yourself, keep one for yourself. And you always want to bring multiple copies of your resume because, that shows that you're prepared. And most of the time, there might be more than one person interview you, right? So you don't just want to bring two resumes, and then have to give them both up because you want one for yourself. So bring a max or a minimum of 5, then you should be good to go. Cover letters, on the other hand, so cover letters, what they are, it pretty much you're telling the employee like who you are, your work experience, very, very narrowed down summary of like why you'd be a good fit for this company, what you bring to the table, and all that good stuff. So how do you behave during an interview? Okay, this is an interview, you're not, I know that I told you to be comfortable during them, but you do not go into it acting like you're just talking to a regular Joe, just talking to your friend. No, this is a professional setting. Okay, treat it as is. So be on your best behavior, right? I know a lot of you guys may be nervous, and that's totally okay and totally normal. One of the things that I do whenever I get nervous in an interview, I smile a lot and I just engage in the conversation. Look them in the eye, smile. Don't like to use my hands a lot whenever I'm in an interview, but sometimes it happens. If it happens, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Make that interviewer feel comfortable with you. You can accomplish that through smiling. I know whenever I'm done interviewing, they may just tell me like, wow, I like how comfortable you were and like how you were smiling a lot. That made me comfortable too, because they're also nervous. They're not nervous, Also, let them talk. Do not interrupt. So if you're one of those people that are always jumping ahead and trying to answer something, or ask a question, this is not the time to do it. If you have a question during the interview, make a mental note, or jot it down. Another thing that you should bring during an interview is a writing pad, where you can write things down, because it shows that you're engaging in the conversation as well. So what kind of questions do you ask during an interview? This is one of my favorite things to do because, like I told you before, interviewing is a two-way street, right? So it's not just a one-way street, it's a two-way street. So they ask you questions. At the end, you're going to have time to ask them questions, right? So this is a chance that you get to see if you want to work for them. An interview, like I said, is a two-way street. And so these are some of the questions that I find helpful to ask during my interview, right? And these are some of my favorite. These are my top 4 questions that I always ask. If you just have time for 2 questions, then I would say focus on the last question here and then focus on the third question here. So the first question I would ask is, why do you enjoy working for this company? This question will tell you about the workplace, the culture, the hiring manager personality, and some honesty, right? Because what if they don't like where they're working for, and they're like, oh, well, the benefits are good, it's a good pay, those are red flags. Like, okay, great pay, who cares, like, yeah, pay is important, right? But do you want to be miserable during your whole time working there? I don't think so. Okay, second question is, what can you tell me about the makeup of the team that I would be working with? This second question will provide you some insight onto potential coworkers, right? So let's say, well, Jeremy is a cool guy, and he is a people pleaser. Okay, that doesn't like give you a lot to work with, okay, yeah, whatever, you're cool, but are you gonna do the work? Are you going to uh, actually partake in a project? Or are you going to be one of those people that don't do anything during the project, but then they take credit? You know what I'm saying? um, Third question is, what is your management style, and how do you effectively provide feedback to your coworkers? um, this, you want to look for servant, consultative, and inclusive style, as well as good communication and transparency, right? So one of the big things whenever you get a job is that you want feedback, because feedback allows you to grow. It allows you to uh, change any kind of mistakes that you've done, or anything that you do but don't realize that you're doing, but it's affecting the organization. Feedback helps you grow ultimately, okay? Fourth question is, what have I said or not said in this interview which might lead you to believe that I am not suitable for this role? You want to look for clear, direct, and immediate feedback. You may also want to address any concerns at this point, right? So let's say they tell you, whenever I ask this question, more than likely they'll tell me, no, there's nothing, here. Or if they do say something, it's like, I really like your experience, right? Or whatever. But if they do say something along the lines of, well, I'm kind of concerned about the gap in your resume, right? Or your work gap, or I'm kind of concerned about your maybe lack of experience, right? Then, you can further ask, okay, what about my lack of experience concerns you, and then they'll provide more feedback. Then you can address that, So let's say you actually have experience in the topic or subject, right? Then address it and say like, well, I've actually done this, this, and this, but I didn't put it on my resume because X, Y, Z, I want to focus on this other things. So please make a note of this, okay? All right, so how do you answer a question during an interview? So you need to remember STAR. STAR is a very basic method to answer questions that provides a picture and tells the employer how you solve the situation, right, and gets right to the point. So S stands for situation. So you set the scene. This is where you set the scene of like, okay, this is my situation. This is what's going on, right? And then the task. Okay, so you explain your responsibility in the situation. So what's your responsibility in the team project? What's your responsibility in this project or this team, whatever, right? Then you say A stands for action, which is explain what you did, right? So what actions did you take to lead to the R, which is the results, right? And then in results, you outline the impact of your actions. There's more information online if you want to check it out. It's pretty solid. So what should you wear? So this can be a tricky one because a lot of people think khakis, dress shoes, and like a long sleeve. No, that's the outfit you wear whenever you go into like your first job and you actually land the job. That's called business casual, but it's more lax, very lax business casual. So for a guy, if you're a guy, you dress professional, suit and tie. If you're a lady, please dress professional as well. Some examples may include, like a blouse, blazer, dress pants. Heels are okay, but don't overdo them. You don't want to be walking with 10-inch heels into an interview because that's not okay. Okay, so also do not go into an interview with jeans, shorts, t-shirt. If you do not have a blazer or anything that you consider business casual, business professional, please just go to Goodwill. They have some really cheap and good stuff there. I know I've personally gotten like a blazer from Goodwill for like $15, which is a steal. Or like if you're a girl, guy, whatever, ask your parents if they have anything. Ask your uncle, ask your aunt, ask your coaches, ask a teacher where they can get you, like help you get that, also you always need it because there's always things that show up or they require you to dress professional. So it's a good investment ultimately. And then these are some examples, right? So as you can see, the girl here, she is wearing, like the blouse, the blazer, the dress shoes, the heels, they have a little heel. I'm not really familiar with heels, but I just know that I've been told, like whenever I go to any kind of interview workshops, they're like, girls, don't overdo the heels. That's like the first thing they say. Uh, Also, if you're a guy, like the nice blazer, like the pants, dress shoes, you want nice dress shoes. Also, always wear a watch. It's just professional. It looks nice. Guys, do your hair. Don't go into an interview with hair like this. Okay, don't do it. It's just a no. Um, and then here for last slide, what do you do after an interview? After an interview, you want to make sure that you give everyone thanks for their consideration and their time. Always ask for a timeline to hear back for this role. So, if like at the very end, if they're like, do you have any more questions? Just be like, yeah, when would I be hearing back for this role? What does the timeline look like? More than likely, they'll say, we'll reach out to you in the next couple of days or the next week. And always ask for an email and then send them a thank you email. So this was my little presentation on interviews. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, you know where to reach me. Other than that, have a good weekend.